This is CBC Nova Scotia News.
Blinding lights, why LED headlights are raising safety alarms and regulatory questions.
Fish feud. Salmon farmers and conservationists clash over promised federal funding.
Working at the coalface underneath the ground.
And Cape Breton singing icons, the Men of the Deeps, marked their 60th anniversary.
Some sunshine on tap over the next couple of days, but keep the extra warm spring jacket handy. Your full forecast is coming up.
Good evening. Well, if you've driven the roads at night lately, you've likely seen the sting of those ultra-bright LED headlights. They help you see the road, of course, but for oncoming traffic, they can be a blinding and dangerous distraction.
The CBC's Linus Mulheron looks at why these high-intensity lights are causing a stir and a new survey that could change headlight regulations.
Facing LED headlights at night on Nova Scotia's roads can be nerve-wracking.
A blinding distraction from pothole dodging, avoiding wildlife, or just staying in your lane.
They're really bright, especially with the new trucks. Yeah, they are having a very high level of luminosity.
It's hard on the eyes. When I blink, I can see the little rays and everything.
And I'm always afraid to drive at night, so I try not to do it as often.
And that's why Transport Canada has conducted a survey about headlight glare.
Basically, since I started practicing in 2018, I've had patients coming in with difficulties driving at night, often related to the LED headlights.
Dr. Coward says our eyes adapt while driving in the dark, and that can take roughly 20 minutes.
And if we're hit with an extra bright light after we've adapted, she says it can cause damage to our eyes, or even worse.
It could potentially be dangerous. If you're driving on a very dark road, suddenly you encounter a very bright light and you have that temporary dazzling where you can't see as well, to potentially avoid hazards.
Dr. Coward is one of thousands of Canadians who filled out the survey, which could inform future changes to regulations related to headlight glare.
Well, it's important to understand that we are living on a regulatory island. The entire rest of the world uses UN regulations. They used to be called European regulations because many decades ago that's where they originated, but now they are used literally everywhere else in the world.
Here in Nova Scotia, rules about headlights follow national guidelines. After we asked, a spokesperson for the Department of Public Works said that there are no other laws that regulate headlight brightness in Nova Scotia, and none that are planned.
Stern says there are several ways Canada could improve headlights. Simple things, like when vehicles are taken in for their regular inspections, headlights should be checked for how level they are.
If I have a magic wand and I'm told to fix glare, one thing I could do is say, all right, we're going back to the warmer white light color that we used to have. We'll keep today's high output, high intensity, so we have all that good seeing, but we're going to cut back on the blue and go back to the warmer white.
Honestly, if they can reduce the brightness of the car lights, that'd be fantastic.
Warmer color, I would be okay with that too, because yellow I find there's no issue really.
Stern says he was really impressed by the thoroughness of Transport Canada's survey, which closes today. Linus Mulheron, CBC News, Halifax.
A town on the shore of the Bay of Fundy is without a gas station for at least 6 weeks. Wheaton's Irving in Parrsboro is undergoing renovations. As Luke Ettinger reports, the nearest place to fill up is about 45 kilometers away.
It's going to be at least an hour to the next gas station from where I live.
For decades, the Wheaton family has owned this Irving gas station in Parrsboro. But these are some of the last customers filling up for over a month. The underground tanks are due to be replaced. At the same time, the canopy and pumps will also be updated. Owner Lee Wheaton is grateful for the investment by Irving, but knows the closure will have impacts.
And we're getting into that busy time of year where you're starting to get day travelers and stuff like that. But we supply a big area for fuel. At one time there was, I think, 6 stations in town, and we're the last.
The closest gas station is in Advocate, about 46 kilometers away. Slightly farther options are in Amherst, Spring Hill, and Great Village. With no other tanks in town, Wheaton inquired about the possibility of a temporary tank, but that isn't happening. Cumberland South MLA Tory Rushton says he's had conversations with local and provincial officials about fuel plans for emergency response, including firefighting.
And I can speak to my experience as a fire chief and as the Minister of Natural Resources during the two worst fire seasons that we've seen in recent history. At a time like that, you're looking to bring fuel to the scene, not necessarily going to a depot, if you will.
They might have something in place for their fire trucks, but who's going to put fuel in the personal vehicles of these emergency responders? There's a gap here, and I think it's very important that it needs filled.
Fletcher says residents will have to travel farther for necessities, using more fuel at an already high price.
It is a big inconvenience for everybody, but at the same time, when we're up and running again, all the new modern stuff, it should help everybody in the long run.
The earliest the gas station could reopen is June 1st, but once the renovations are complete, Wheaton estimates the new tanks will last for 40 years. Luke Ettinger, CBC News, Parrsboro.
And the price of gas dropped by 11.5 cents, and diesel fell by 4.6 cents overnight as Ottawa's federal fuel tax break takes effect. The new minimum of price for regular self-service gasoline in the Halifax area is $1.67.2 cents per litre. The minimum price for diesel is now 206.6 cents per litre. The fuel tax reduction is only temporary and is scheduled to be reinstated September the 8th.
Meanwhile, StatsCan says the annual inflation rate rose to 2.4% in March. That's a jump from 1.8% the month before. Higher prices for energy, especially gas, because of the war in Iran, drove inflation higher. The agency says the 21.2% monthly jump in the price of gasoline last month was the largest on record. The rise in fuel costs also impacted the cost of transportation.
A Nova Scotia judge has ruled the province's decision last year to ban most people from entering the woods to prevent wildfires was unreasonable. The judicial review from the Nova Scotia Supreme Court says the province-wide ban imposed in August of 2025 did not meet the standard for reasonableness because it limited the right of citizens to move freely within Canada. The ruling stems from a constitutional challenge filed by Jeffrey Evely, who was fined more than $28,000 for deliberately violating the ban by walking into the woods near Sydney and then posting a video on social media. All right, with us now to talk weather, Ryan Snoddon.
Yes, we got some sunshine at least.
Yeah, but temps obviously a little on the brisk side out there for today, especially compared to the milder temperatures we had Sunday where we were near 20 degrees in the valley. Obviously, yes, much cooler along the Atlantic coastline on Sunday, but still, this is definitely a little breath of fresh air, we'll put it that way, and temperatures are going to be even cooler for Tuesday. We've got this clouds clearing away. On the backside of this cold front, we're going to see some clearing skies overnight, and yes, some sunshine on tap for tomorrow, but indeed, this is going to be a little brisk. We'll see temperatures near and below the freezing mark to start the day tomorrow, just 3-4 degrees for many. We'll get into the 5 to 6 range across the south and west. As I said, some sunshine, some isolated showers developing in the southwest and into the metro area, but isolated indeed. More sun, but yeah, searching for the heat in the 7-day. We'll talk about that coming up.
And we all are. Okay, thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan.
Well, a battle is brewing in the waters of Atlantic Canada. It's a battle between salmon farmers and conservationists, clashing over promised federal funding. Vernon Ramazar reports.
On one side, fish farmers. On the other, a conservation group. At stake, more than $80 million in federal funding. Money earmarked for saving wild Atlantic salmon. The conflict went public on April the 8th. Tom Taylor of the Atlantic Canada Fish Farmers Association penned an open letter to Prime Minister Mark Carney, demanding the Atlantic Salmon Federation, or ASF, be excluded from receiving the new federal money. What sparked the uproar? The ASF's involvement in an international campaign called Off the Table, which urges restaurants and hotels to stop serving farmed salmon entirely. Its website and social media posts claim that farmed salmon is bad for the environment, bad for people, and bad for wild salmon.
I know they still do conservation work that is valued, but they have crossed a line when they have brought this misinformation intentionally forward on the quality of our products and are attempting to create a food scare that will demarket our products and close our industry down.
Atlantic fish farmers are already on edge, following a recent decision to ban open-net pen salmon farming in British Columbia by 2029. Taylor says in the Atlantic provinces, the industry employs thousands and generates billions in economic activity a year, much of it in rural communities. Not only does he want Ottawa to withhold funding to the ASF, he calls the group a foreign-funded activist organization and wants Ottawa to review its charitable status. But the ASF says it's just doing its job, defending wild Atlantic salmon, an ecologically important species at risk.
We advocate continuously. It is not only a legitimate aspect of the work of non-government organizations, but an essential one. Advocacy is what makes meaningful, long-lasting difference over time.
Crabb rejects the implication that the group is trying to shut down fish farming. He maintains they're just trying to stop it from growing. Assuming the promised $80 million comes through, he says it will help efforts to restore the wild salmon population. Vern Ramesar, CBC News, Halifax.
Nova Scotia Power is planning to spend $43 million to overhaul the equipment at Tufts Cove in its power station in Dartmouth. The plant includes the iconic candy cane striped smokestacks on the edge of Halifax Harbour, but there are no plans to touch those. The gas turbine engines are what need work. Tufts Cove has 3 engines and runs 2 at a time, with a third held in reserve as a spare. Nova Scotia Power says one engine needs major repairs and another needs to be replaced.
A Nova Scotia museum, once facing permanent closure amid provincial budget cuts, will remain open to the public. Perkins House Museum was one of the dozen slated for closure. Now it's announced that it will receive some funding under the Provincial Communities Museum Assistance Program. Museum officials say they expect to receive about $50,000, 60% less than what the museum previously received from the provincial government. The province says there are ongoing talks with other museums affected by the spring budget cuts.
Well, Nova Scotia's only coal mining choir, it's first in North America, really. They hit the road today to celebrate their 60th anniversary.
Yeah, Men of the Deeps erupted into song at the airport. Here's Kyle Moore.
The Men of the Deep serenaded passengers at the airport in Sydney on Monday before boarding a flight to Ontario to kick off their 60th anniversary tour.
After family, it's probably one of the most important things that ever happened to me.
Nipper McLeod is a well-known member. He's been with the group for 5 decades, helping spread the word about Cape Breton's rich coal mining history abroad. Nipper shared the stage for many years with Rita McNeil, who was a huge part of the miner's story. She died in 2013 at the age of 68 following complications from surgery. 13 years later, and just days after the anniversary of her death, the men say she remains a part of their spirit and songs.
Of course, we do working man, always. Rita was like a sister to this group.
It's a working man. The band have been working on new projects and material, which will be featured in upcoming shows.
The history, it dates back to 1966. So many men, so many personalities, so many stories and songs. We're just so excited to be able to go on the road and take these stories from the past and the ones from the present and create new ones for the future.
A cornerstone of their performances center on educating the public about the struggles faced as mine owners controlled almost every aspect of a coal miner's life in the early 1900s. Now that the mines are closed, it's getting harder to find new members.
If there's no miners left, it's not the same thing. The guys now are all worked underground, so that's what keeps it true.
The Ontario portion of the tour includes 12 dates with a sold-out anniversary show at the Savoy in Glace Bay in November. How many years this group will continue to perform is unclear. But for now, their focus is continuing to share Cape Breton's coal mining story through song and story. Kyle Moore, CBC News, Sydney.
There's a nice view of the Carney Lake trails. Ryan's up next with the full weather forecast. Stay with us.
Your full weather forecast now, and yeah, I think fair to say people got a bit of a shock today. Some sunshine made everyone feel pretty good.
It was very welcome. I didn't see many people in shorts and T-shirts, though.
No. Yeah, chilly and even cooler tomorrow. So though the wind's a little bit lighter than they were today. But yeah, compared to where we started, it certainly brightened up. And Tom, you weren't here on Friday, so we debuted our first time lapse.
Yes.
Okay.
NovaScotiaWebcams.com. Helping us out with some time lapses on days that warrant it. And I think today is one of those days. We're going to start this morning. This is Truro, that Fundy Discovery site. And as you can see a pretty damp start there this morning, some showers, but then things really cleared out nicely throughout the day across the province. You can see that cloud clearing from west to east across the province, that blue sky off to the west and then overhead. Beautiful.
Pretty nice.
And you can see the tide coming up there as well. So pretty cool to have those time lapses. And there is the look right now. And the sun indeed shining. A little cool, but it is certainly nice to see the sun. Thanks again to Nova Scotia Webcams. And as we look at the temperatures out there, 1 to 4 across Cape Breton. It's 6 in Truro. It's 8 in Halifax, 10 at Western Head, 9 in Shelburne. So we did get to some double digits today along that South Shore. The double digits are going to be hard to come by, though, over the next couple of days. Note the winds. Yeah, they've been a little bit of a factor today, sustained near 20 kilometers per hour from the north, generally northerly. And as we look at the outlook tonight, the winds are going to become light, thankfully, as you can see behind this system moving away. That cloud deck still taking its time clearing across Cape Breton, but you folks will get there. We do have a chance for some isolated showers here across Colchester, Cumberland this evening and the Northumberland shore, maybe as far south as Truro and as well as Kentville, as we will be looking at this little wave that's going to be passing through over the next couple of hours. High pressure moving in. That's going to be keeping things quiet at least, but temperatures are going to be struggling here in the east. The jet stream is dipping up well to the north. Edmonton at 20 degrees right now, but then dipping in this trough settling into eastern parts of North America, and that is going to be in place. We've got a Greenland blocking high, which is, shutting things down, that highway that the weather systems like to take. There's a roadblock, and so we're going to get locked into this pattern here for this week with some cooler than average temperatures. Tonight will be near the freezing mark. As I said, that chance for a shower or wet flurry over the next couple of hours here across the north. But then overall quiet tonight. As we said, those temps dipping to near the freezing mark. Tomorrow, a mix of sun and cloud, a little cloudier across eastern areas, especially into the afternoon. And there's an isolated chance for a shower developing here across the southwest of the province. Generally inland, where those sea breezes will come in over land and then rise. That's where we'll see the potential for an isolated pop-up shower. 1 to 4 across Cape Breton tomorrow. Northerly winds near 20. Those northerly winds coming in across Antigonish County as well. Lighter, though, for the Guysborough County region, and lighter winds across the Northumberland shore coming in from the north, which is 10 to 20. But yes, temperatures will struggle all the way across to Amherst and even in for inland areas. As you can see, 4 or 5 degrees is about as warm as it's going to get. It's an isolated shower risk, generally inland Halifax County. And as I said, down the South Shore, inland areas, Keji also with that risk for a shower, but looks like we'll be fine for most of the day, and those isolated showers are going to be just that, very isolated in nature. Running into Wednesday now, and you can see that things still looking pretty quiet. A pretty chilly start to Wednesday with the below freezing temperatures, -4 to -5 to start Wednesday morning, but then off to the races. And we could crack double digits in Keji on Wednesday, but generally it is going to be single digits again, 4 to 6 degrees, 8 in the valley, and as I said, 10, maybe Keji back towards New Ross, looking at temperatures near 2 in through Cape Breton. And then for Thursday, we've got this system passing to the south. A trough ahead or on the northern edge of this will bring some clouds and some showers into the mix for Thursday. And the general pattern into next week is just unsettled. That blocking high, I shouldn't say unsettled, I should say locked in. But that blocking high is going to be in place, and so those temps struggle into Friday, Saturday, and then creeping back closer to seasonal Sunday and into next week, which also looks seasonal throughout the week. Fingers and toes crossed.
No heat wave, though, is it?
No, it sure isn't.
Okay, thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan. the start of the spring lobster season is less than a week away on PEI's North Shore.
That's earlier than the traditional start date of May the 1st, and that's causing a problem for at least one harbor. The CBC's Nancy Russell reports.
The spring lobster season on PEI's North Shore is scheduled to start on April 25th. That's 1 week earlier than the traditional start date of May 1st. This is the second year for the earlier start in LFA 24, as it's called, voted on by fishers before the beginning of last season.
So fishers wanted to start earlier so that they're off the water earlier, avoiding July. The purpose is that lobsters have their most biologically significant time, starting in July, being when they reproduce and molt.
I'm scratching my head a little bit. I remember a lot of years where literally there was ice in the harbor right up to starting day, and that was, traditional dates.
Timothy Wall says the issue here at Malpeque is the channel that the boats take out of the harbor to where they fish. It's narrow and fills in with sand, making for treacherous conditions. There's a danger of running aground, especially on setting day when the boats are loaded with traps. Last year, the dredging took until the last minute.
We punched a hole through literally the day before the opening date, and so losing that week was hard.
Wall says there was more ice here over the winter, and that meant the dredging has started even later than usual. He's worried, again, if it will be finished in time. If not, he says, the start of the season should be delayed.
Till everyone has safe access. That's all we want. We just want safe access to our fishing grounds.
Representatives from all of the North Shore harbors have been taking part in calls organized by the Federal Department of Fisheries. Depending on how the opening of the season goes this year, the earlier start date could be back in 2027.
If everybody was happy with it, then it may stay the 25th or it may go to another vote, depending on the feedback.
Having that extra week for better weather and more time for dredging is a tremendous help. So we're hopeful that, we explored it, we seen what would happen, and we can go back to our traditional opening day. That's our hope.
Meanwhile, lobster fishers in the eastern part of PEI have their own start date. The opening of Lobster Fishing Area 26A is scheduled for April 27th. Nancy Russell, CBC News, Malpeque.
Coming up, thousands of civil servants are back in the office full-time as the province ends flexible work arrangements.
Thousands of civil servants with the Nova Scotia government who had been working from home have been ordered back into the office full-time. The province ordered an end to remote work arrangements for its unionized employees starting Monday. And for more on this, we're joined by Sandra Mullen, president of the Nova Scotia Government and General Employees Union. So this announcement was made back in February, but it took place today. This is the start of it. What were you hearing from workers?
Well, we certainly heard from a number of members, well over 1,000, who are certainly impacted by a change in work location. The return to office certainly impacts their day-to-day, whether it's childcare, all that commuting that has to change. So they've put in many grievances, and we have submitted a policy grievance on this matter because many of them took positions based on the fact that they could work from home, be it 2 or 3 days a week, and in some cases it was based on location of office.
Well, what is the status of that grievance?
We're waiting for an arbitration process to go through. It is going through that process. We're willing to work with them to expedite that. However, today is day 60 and a return to office mandate is effective today.
So how many people are we talking about here?
Well, we understood there were between 2,500 and 3,000 folks who had been made eligible for this work from home. So therefore, we're looking at 2,500 to 3,000 across the province. Certainly the majority are within HRM.
Is there enough space for them to return? Have some offices downsized in the past few years?
Exactly, and that's exactly what our members are saying, that there isn't the office space that there was over 5 years ago. And certainly workspaces have changed, and so the employers are going to be scrambling to find desk space to put these folks at. And which is going to add to congestion on traffic, of course, and parking, especially in the downtown HRM. We do know that.
Well, what about productivity and the argument that when people are in the office and everybody's together, more gets done?
Certainly, in the past 5 years, work has adjusted to so many of the work from home tools and the remote work that we all have, whether it's Teams meetings or Zoom or all those capabilities, the work is being done. We hear from a number of folks who have to come into the office on their 2 or 3 days a week that they're commuting to the office to do those Teams meetings, because whether they're a provincial team group, they are meeting with folks across the province via Teams. So this coming into the office is doing nothing for productivity. It's causing congestion on our highways and asking these folks to commute, which disrupts their patterns that they have established over the last 5 years.
Now, other sectors have gone back to the office, switching from what happened during COVID and gone back to the way it had been before. Why shouldn't civil servants do the same?
Well, some of them have been given an accommodation, be it for circumstances that those are the ones we're dealing with. They were either signed up for a position in a space knowing that they could work from home 3 days out of 5 or 2 or whatever it was. So that's different work is handled differently. Some work is definitely capable of being done remote. Some of those positions are frontline positions as well, front-facing. So we know those folks had gone back to the office on a more regular basis.
Now, there's also been a push to get more people into the downtown to stimulate the local economy. Will the end of remote work help in that circumstance?
Well, certainly that is what was thought, that this is the purpose behind this, getting folks to come in and stimulate that economy. But let's look at the last 60 days with the increased cost of fuel. The ability that you might have had to spend any money on that in the downtown while you're at work has been erased, because now you're going to spend it extra commuting. So that cost of fuel is increasing, and then the parking fees. So that increase in fuel is going to not only impact those folks coming into office, but it's going to impact communities across where folks have less money.
Now, do you think some people will leave their jobs with the civil service, or what's going to happen now?
you know, you would wonder if that is the purpose, that let's put that out there and see who stays and who leaves. We have yet to hear any numbers on any decisions made by civil servants.
All right, we will leave it there. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Coming up, the British Prime Minister says he will not resign after his appointed ambassador to the U.S. was fired over ties to Jeffrey Epstein.
And a new study suggests that a popular fertilizer is threatening the health of freshwater sources in parts of Canada. Welcome back. Authorities in Mexico say a Canadian woman has died after a gunman opened fire at a historic tourist site north of Mexico City.
6 other people were injured during the attack. Mexican officials say the shooter died later from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. At least 4 of the injured were hit by gunfire and 2 others from falling. The local government says the injured include Colombian, Russian, and Canadian tourists.
Mexico's president says she has been in touch with the Canadian embassy. The site is considered one of the most important cultural centers in Mesoamerica.
A man shot and killed 7 of his children and 1 other child in Shreveport, Louisiana on Sunday. 2 women were seriously injured in the attack, which took place in 2 homes. One of the women was the man's wife. It was the deadliest mass shooting in the U.S. in more than 2 years. The community is reeling.
It lets you know that evil still exists in the world and that we need to be fighting everything we can to overcome that.
After the attack, the man drove away in a stolen car. Police gave chase and fired at him. He died, but it's unclear whether his death was from a self-inflicted gunshot. The man was identified as Shamar Elkins. He and his wife were in the middle of a separation. One of the deceased children was a cousin of the others. They were between the ages of 3 and 11. One child survived by jumping off the roof.
The British Prime Minister admits it was a mistake to appoint Peter Mandelson as ambassador to the U.S., given his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. But Keir Starmer says he wasn't aware Mandelson had failed security checks. His critics are accusing him of shirking responsibility. Crystal Gamansing reports.
Have you misled Parliament, Prime Minister? Will you resign, Mr. Starmer?
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer told Parliament he should have had more information before appointing Peter Mandelson to be the UK's ambassador to the US, and that there were times after he fired him that information could have been shared, saying he was kept in the dark about security concerns.
Many members across the House will find these facts to be incredible. To that, I can only say they are right. It beggars belief that throughout the whole timeline of events, officials in the Foreign Office saw fit to withhold this information from the most senior ministers in our system in government. That is not how the vast majority of people in this country expect politics, government, or accountability to work.
Starmer says the Foreign Office granted Mandelson security clearance despite another government agency saying he should be denied. The leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, says Mandelson's position risked national security, saying he not only has had business links with Russia and China, but a personal relationship with the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, revelations which led to his termination last fall. Badenoch questioned why Starmer fired 4 government officials for the Mandelson scandal, but he still has his job.
The Prime Minister has thrown his staff and his officials under the bus. All of these people fired for a decision he made.
The damage to his reputation noted on the streets of London.
I think he probably will survive. Obviously don't know all of the details. There might be some things that come out of it that we don't yet know, but I think that, yeah, he's probably going to carry on for now. And
I think he will survive because I don't think there's a better choice.
A lackluster endorsement for the leader and a party given an overwhelming majority in the 2024 election. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
As we mentioned earlier, prices at the pump are going down, with Ottawa's fuel tax suspension going into effect. The relief comes as tour boat operators in Newfoundland and Labrador get ready for their season, but the high cost of diesel could still make a big dent to their bottom line. Madison Taylor has that story.
It takes thousands of litres of fuel to fill the tank of the Gaffer 6.
So our fuel tanks run from this part all the way to here.
Along with other tour boats, she's dry docking for the winter and is bound for the water again soon. But Luke Gatherell says it takes a lot of diesel to fill this tank.
Well, it is a boatload, that's for sure.
At Gatherell's Puffin and Whale Watch in Bay Bulls, things are calm. But in a matter of weeks, that'll all change. In its peak season, Gatherell's fills their boat's 3,000-litre tank once every 10 days to show tens of thousands of tourists the wildlife here.
Come on, Whale, there you go!
In the business of uncertainty, the price of diesel is now another factor on their list of elements they can't control.
Mother Nature is a big one, wildlife is a big one, and fuel is now starting to become a big one as well.
With some visitors booking a year in advance, gatherers are hoping for another bumper season, and the prices for their tours aren't changing.
Here in St. John's, another tour boat operator is getting ready for the season too, taking folks in search of icebergs.
He says filling up multiple diesel vessels adds up, and 4 cents off per litre doesn't make much of a dent at this scale.
To us, that's pretty insignificant, really. And, we're talking probably, if our tanks were empty right now, we'd be looking at anywhere about 20,000 litres.
Rogers is focusing on the elements he can control, like nudging back on the throttle and planning trips and routes carefully. Much like Gatheralls, he's remaining optimistic.
For us, yeah, maybe fuel costs are up, but yet, icebergs is a bonus.
Making their living out on the water, these operators are ready to weather the storm.
We're a really close-knit family, and this is the 3rd generation. We've survived for 40 years, over 40 years now, so, we try and take it positive and put our best foot forward and do our best.
Tour boats will be back on the water soon, but how much it'll cost to fill their tanks, only time will tell. Madison Taylor, CBC News, St. John's.
A couple in British Columbia is going public after a car rental giant billed them thousands of dollars for a destroyed engine. Enterprise claimed the couple damaged the car they rented by filling up with diesel instead of gas. Erica Johnson has more on their months-long fight to get the claim dropped.
It's crazy.
Kelly and Catherine Graves have turned their dining room into a war room, fighting the car rental giant Enterprise after renting a vehicle last year in Edmonton. A week after returning the car to National Car Rental, owned by Enterprise, they got an email blaming them for the damage.
There was diesel put in the gas tank.
And they were on the hook.
I was a little anxious and, blood pressure went up a bit.
Yeah, there's been a lot of stress.
The couple provided receipts showing they put regular gasoline in the tank before returning the car to the Edmonton airport. A photo of the gas pump shows it only dispenses gasoline, no diesel. On top of that, the rental car had what's called a capless fuel system like this. Designed for gasoline only, a wider diesel nozzle won't fit. With all that evidence, they thought the claim had gone away. But 9 months later, they get a letter saying the engine repair cost $9,500 and they are responsible for the damages.
You work all your life to gain a savings so that you can retire and enjoy your life. And then somebody comes along and says, we're going to take $10,000 away from you.
This mechanic says if the Graves had filled the tank with diesel, the car wouldn't have made the 50-kilometer drive to the airport.
What would be happening to the car?
Smoke, poor performance of the vehicle, misfiring, flashing check engine light. I don't even think it would have made it more than a few kilometers, if that.
The Graves hired a lawyer who said Enterprise had to have proof the couple caused the diesel damage.
They can't just issue an invoice and expect payment without any evidence.
Enterprise declined an interview, but after Go Public sent questions, the company sent a statement saying, due to the time that has elapsed since the incident, it was unable to verify the fueling source. So it's dropping the claim. Long-awaited relief for the Graves, who hope other drivers won't have to face the same ordeal. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
With self-driving cars becoming popular in the U.S., autonomous taxi operator Waymo is looking north, but can the technology handle Canada's colder climate? Nisha Patel has more on the company's next move and the roadblocks that it's up against.
Decked out with cameras and radars, this isn't just any taxi. It's a Waymo autonomous vehicle, and it operates entirely without a human driver.
This experience may feel futuristic, but the need to buckle up is the same as always.
Waymo is owned by Google parent company Alphabet.
It's like an Uber, but there's no driver.
It's available in almost a dozen cities in the U.S. and is testing internationally in London and Tokyo.
Canada could be next. Waymo has been lobbying government officials in Ontario and British Columbia, and the City of Toronto confirms Waymo plans to apply to the province's pilot program for driverless vehicles.
Certainly, getting into a vehicle with no driver where the steering wheel turns itself, it's a bit of a culture shock, and that acceptance is not going to come overnight.
Experts say there is data that shows driverless cars get into fewer accidents compared to humans.
They don't drink and drive. They don't road rage. They don't read their smartphones while they're at the wheel scrolling through their feeds.
But there have been some incidents where Waymo's made headlines.
The vehicle's just stalled at intersections right in the middle,
causing traffic jams during power outages and turning into lanes they're not supposed to.
Concerned they were about to be in a head-on collision, they pulled around the Waymo.
You have a system that can handle most of the situations, most of the driving, but now and then it will get stuck.
And since Waymo has mostly been operating in warm weather cities, driving in Toronto could be a challenge.
I believe winter is a big problem. You have, let's say, snowfall, so you don't see things properly. You have slippery roads.
It's not yet clear when Waymo could hit the streets of Toronto.
I'm just scared that there's going to be a technical issue.
I'd get in a driverless taxi. I'd be fine with that. I think the technology's there.
It's like no human involved. I don't trust it.
Experts say it could be years before driverless taxis become widespread, so the road to mainstream adoption may be a long one. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Scientists are sounding the alarm over one of the world's most popular fertilizers. Urea, a nitrogen-based product, helps grow most of Canada's food. But a new study indicates that it threatens to degrade nearly half the fresh water in the prairies. Alexander Silberman looks at the risks and the potential solutions.
Farmer Ian McCreary calls it a difficult balancing act. The fertilizer going into his fields, vital to grow food and make a living, but if not carefully contained, risky for the environment.
Nitrogen fertilizer is incredibly important, and it's quite potentially dangerous, so it needs to be managed.
Urea, a fertilizer that helps feed most of the world, is now a source of concern. The product is threatening to degrade nearly half of fresh water sources on the prairies, according to a new study by researchers in Saskatchewan and Manitoba.
From an environmental perspective, absolutely there's a problem. We need to be really clear that this stuff cannot get into the water.
The research team added the fertilizer to farm ponds. They found increased algae growth, rapid oxygen loss, water turning green and thicker. The effects? Destroying the ecosystem and killing fish.
It's just a warning sign. The red flag is up now. We should pay attention to this.
The study warns the threat to water quality is likely a global issue, with agricultural regions in the U.S. and China identified at risk. But scientists say telling people not to use the fertilizer at all is not a viable solution.
Playing the balance of the need to grow food and the need to maintain water is a really big challenge that is global, and people are going to have to reconcile with that.
The goal for now, keep fertilizer in the fields and out of the water, using natural buffers like these trees as a way to stop runoff.
It's really urgent. It's urgent for a lot of reasons.
McCreary mapped his soil to see where fertilizer is not needed, trying to reduce what he puts in the ground.
And this recent study said fresh water is another reason why it's really urgent to make it happen.
McCreary says government support is needed to encourage farmers to adapt. Alexander Silberman, CBC News, Bladworth, Saskatchewan.
Well, good news for hockey fans. It's officially playoff season, and the Montreal Canadiens are off to a good start.
And here comes Suzuki in. Midpoint Hudson, down low, Slavkovsky scores! It's a hat trick! Overtime winner for Uri Slavkovsky!
Uri Slavkovsky is the overtime hero, of course. He completes the hat trick to lift the Habs past the Tampa Bay Lightning in the opening game of their first round series. The Habs won 4-3. Game 2 tomorrow night in Florida. Tonight, the Ottawa Senators hope to even their series with the Carolina Hurricanes, and the Edmonton Oilers open their series against the Anaheim Ducks. Canada's main stock index finished in positive territory Monday, helped by gains in technology stocks, while U.S. markets edged a little bit lower. Here's a look at the numbers as we head to break. Okay, we should remind everyone, as Ryan did earlier, it is still April.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
so don't lose faith.
It doesn't feel any warmer than that.
No.
No,
for sure.
no, it feels more like March or early April. Yeah, temperatures are definitely taking a bit of a step back today into the next couple of days. But we are hopefully warming back closer to seasonal Sunday into next week. First, have a look at our viewer picture of the day. And this one, we're going to zoom in on a great spot here, Richmond, not far from Malagash. And as we look at this, Wayne Redmond's yard looking very spring-like.
Did some chores, I think, on the weekend.
Looks like it, yeah.
Absolutely. And Wayne reporting that they've actually missed some of those showers. So he's, looking for a little bit of rain up there. Maybe a shower tonight moving through there, Wayne, but overall pretty quiet over the next few days. Isolated shower chances in the southwest, both Tuesday and again on Wednesday. Generally inland areas, Yarmouth, Shelburne County, up the South Shore into the metro area, but they are isolated chances, and it is kind of looking dry the next 2 days. There's a better chance for showers across the board on Thursday, and then drier again Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So, this time of year, we do need the wet weather to be frequent, and so I think we'll be looking for more shower activity next week as things warm up.
All right, good enough. Thanks so much, Ryan. Well, a couple in California got some unexpected visitors over the weekend.
Look at that! Wow!
Oh, my.
Hi, everybody. How's your guys' trip?
Landed. This hot air balloon filled with people landed in their backyard.
Yes, the pilots had to make an emergency landing after winds died down. The balloon was able to be brought out of the backyard and put on a truck about 2 hours after the landing.
Nobody was injured, and there was no damage to any property.
Yeah, but talking about
Good
dropping
story
in.
to tell, though. Yeah.
All right, that's it for us tonight, folks. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Good night.
Good night.